And welcome everybody to Journey into the Light. I'm your host, Michael Long. Thanks for being here on this Thursday evening. Got a great hour ahead of us. And author of Dancing on the Sand, Garnet Schulhauser is my guest, live from Canada. He's going to be talking about, we did I want to call part one, and I know a lot of people maybe weren't here or listening to the show, so we're going to go over a lot. We did also, Garnet has written an amazing book about his encounter with a homeless person that changed his life. He found out later it was his spirit guide, changed his life, and made him write this book. And what he has written in this book has a lot of the answers that we all look for when we're seeking answers spiritually. So I know most of the listeners here have done this show for almost 5 years, and I know most of the listeners, why they come to these shows, what their questions are about the other side, very similar to mine. So we would also like to take your phone calls this hour. If you have a question for the guest, that would be great. Or if you want to share a spiritual encounter you had, and we'll leave that open for whatever you want to talk about, whatever story you want to share. It would be beautiful if you call in here in this hour. Just pick up the phone, dial on in. 347-884-8245 is your number to call in. And if you're in the chat room, please to make sure that you use the font, change your font to something like maybe Arial Black or something else. What Blog Talk does, it automatically presets your font to whichever first on the list, and that comes across as symbols. So always remember that no matter what chat room you're in on Blog Talk, to always check your font, because otherwise they'll come across as symbols, and the person receiving it can't read it. So there you go. So come on in. Chat room is open. If you can't call in, you can also ask your question in the chat room. Just type it in there, and I will ask my guest here your question. So it's that simple. Go to the show for the chat room, Blog Talk Radio, Journey into the Light, and that will click up there. Make sure you join us on our Facebook. We have two Facebooks. So one is under Michael Long, and the other one is under Journey into the Light. Make sure you like our fan page, please. I post all my show information there, spiritual quotes, pictures, all that good stuff that I think you would enjoy. So we will see you there. So, and stay tuned for news about the upcoming show on Greg Keene. There's a question if we're going to do that show tonight or next Thursday. Checking with Greg's people right now. Okay, here we go. Let's go to our phone lines here, and let's bring our guest back on, who was on last Thursday. Let's bring Garnet back to the show. Garnet, welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Michael. How about you?
Hey, doing great. I'm glad to have you back. I enjoyed last Thursday a whole lot. And
as did I, Michael.
Great. What I would like to do is, because we'll have a lot of people listen to this show live or archives for the first time also. So why don't you go ahead and tell, again, a little bit, about your encounter and of the homeless person, and we'll just kind of go from there, and I'll bring in any phone calls we might have, and just, how does that sound?
Sounds great. Okay, I think that's probably a good idea, because we may have new listeners tonight, Michael.
Right.
So anyway, I wrote my book, Dancing on a Stamp, and as Michael mentioned, it's about an encounter I had with a homeless man on the street one day in Calgary, in Canada, where I was working. But before I get into the details of that, I think maybe I should just back up a bit and give you a bit of my background so you can understand where I was coming from and how this all related to my encounter with this homeless man. So anyway, I was born on a small farm in Saskatchewan in Canada on the Canadian Plains, and I was raised in a very religious Roman Catholic family. And it was really quite religious because we went to church not only every Sunday, but we went on to church on holy days of obligation and the first Fridays and first Saturdays. And quite often in the evening, our mother would gather us around and we would kneel down and say the family rosary. And I was an altar boy for a number of years serving Mass, and that's sort of the background that I was raised with, which was very strong Roman Catholic faith. But as I reached my teen years, I had a lot of questions about what the Catholic Church had taught me, and a lot of the beliefs I found to be illogical and arbitrary, and I had a lot of questions. And as I progressed through, my 20s, those questions kept on popping up. And by the time I reached my 30s, I had more or less rejected most of what the Roman Catholic Church had taught. Not all of it, but a lot of their dogma and a lot of their what I found to be unreasonable and unrealistic beliefs and rules, which didn't make any sense to me. So then for the longest time, I had rejected those beliefs, and I was drifting in no man's land, basically, without anything else to latch onto. And so I cast about and read a lot of books on other religions, on spirituality and metaphysics, trying to find my answers. And of course, my questions were the same that most adults usually have at one point or another in their lives. Questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What am I supposed to accomplish in my life? And of course, the ever-present big one, what happens to me after I die? So those questions kept on revolving through my mind, and I kept on trying to find the answer, but nothing ever came up that sort of satisfied me in all those respects. So this led me to my encounter with the homeless man. For me, it was a typical Monday. I woke up on Monday morning, and as I usually did, I was staring at my face in the mirror as I was shaving, and these questions that I just mentioned kept popping back into my mind. They seemed to come always on a Monday morning for whatever reason. So it was that afternoon, and I was practicing law. That was my career. I was a lawyer, practicing law in Calgary, and that Monday afternoon, it was a sunny afternoon in May, I decided to go for a walk to get some fresh air. So I took a stroll on a pedestrian mall right in front of our office building, a place that I had walked many times before. So strolling down the street in my navy pinstripe suit, looking every bit like a straight-laced stuffed shirt corporate lawyer. And as I made my way a couple blocks past my building, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this homeless man jumped up in front of me and stopped me in my tracks. Now, he was dressed, and he looked like a typical homeless man. He had long, stringy hair and a scraggly beard. His clothes looked like they'd been slept in for weeks, and he totally fit the bill for a homeless person. So typically when I'd met these people on the street before, I would usually just do a quick sidestep and go around them because most of the time they were panhandling for money. At that time, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to homeless people or their plight, which, as you can imagine, after I finish my story, has changed dramatically. But so this homeless man, instead of walking around him like I typically would do with a homeless person, he sort of stopped me in my tracks. And what was different about him was that he had these amazing, sparkling, dazzling blue eyes that shone like they were like two little blue stars shining out of his head. And his gaze was doing two things to me at the same time. The first was that it was penetrating deep inside of me. I felt like he was looking right into the depths of my soul. And because of that, I sensed that he knew everything about me. He knew everything I'd ever done in my life. He knew all my hopes and aspirations. He knew all my fears and anxieties. And he even knew my deepest and darkest secrets that I'd never ever revealed to anyone. And he didn't have to say this. I just sensed and I just knew from his look that he knew everything about me. But even though I was standing there feeling kind of naked and exposed, as you can imagine, I didn't run, because at the same time, his eyes were sending me an amazing wave of pure, unconditional love that was just infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace and security, a feeling I'd never ever had before in my life. It was just something I could have just stood there forever, basking in this wonderful feeling of love. And it was like I was in a time warp, really, because I don't know how long I stood there. And frankly, I didn't care if I stood there forever, because it was such an amazing feeling. But after, at some point, the homeless man broke the spell. He said to me, "Why are you here?" And then he immediately turned and went into a nearby store. It took me a few seconds for me to collect my wits, but when I did, I followed him into the store to see if I could find him and ask him why he had stopped me. Well, I went into the store. There was only one entrance, and I walked up and down, and I couldn't see him anywhere. He was just gone. I went back out onto the street, walked up and down, hoping to spot him, but he had just disappeared. So I headed back to my office with my head spinning with all these thoughts. I wanted to know, who was this guy? Why did he stop me? Why did he ask me that question? And I went home that evening, and these thoughts, these questions kept on spinning through my mind. And I knew then that I had to go back the next day to find this man if I could. So the very next day, the same time, I went back out onto the same pedestrian mall and started my walk, hoping I would be able to run into him again. Well, I walked for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and just as I was about to lose hope, I suddenly spotted him sitting by himself on a bench. So I walked over to him, and I said to him, "Why did you stop me? And why did you ask me that question yesterday?" And he said, "I'm a soul like you. I'm here to answer your questions and to help you on your journey." Well, my lawyer brain kicked in at that point, and I became a little skeptical. And I said to him, "Well, how can you help me? You look like you can't even help yourself, because you look like you've been living on the street and sleeping in your clothes for weeks, and you smell like a dead fish. So how are you going to help me?" Well, he just gave me a big smile, and he said, "Looks can be deceiving, because you look like you're a very successful corporate lawyer with everything under control, but we both know that's just a facade." He said, "You can turn around and go back to your office and see if you can find your answers in all those emails waiting for you on your computer, or you can sit down here and have a chat with me. And after all, what do you have to lose if you sit down and talk to me for a while?" Well, my intuition then kicked in, and I knew that, yes, this guy was a very special and different guy, and I didn't really have anything to lose to sit down and talk with him for a while. And so I did. And so that's how our conversation began. And our conversation carried on for the next several months. For the first 3 times that we met, this man, whose name was Albert, appeared to me as the homeless man. And after that, he was just a voice in my head. And he revealed to me early on that he was actually one of my spirit guides in disguise, and he had come to me to answer all of my questions and to try to convince me that I should write a book so that everyone else could have access to his answers and his revelations. So that was how the conversation started. He told me that when he appeared to me as a homeless person, that I was the only one who could see him in that physical form, and that no one else would be able to see him. And if someone had walked by the bench that day when we were chatting, it would have appeared like I was sitting there talking to myself. Maybe that he was quite an amazing character. He was very wise, He was humble. He didn't lecture or preach to me. He had a great sense of humor, and he did in fact answer all of my big questions and a lot of other questions that arose during our conversation. And so it was really quite an amazing, life-changing experience for me. And within a year after I first met Albert, I decided to retire from my law practice, and I moved up to Vancouver Island and eventually got around, after some hesitation, to writing my book, which is Dancing on a Stamp.
That's an amazing story. How long has your book been out?
My book was actually published and released last October 2012.
Okay, and what kind of feedback have
It actually took me a while to get around to writing it because I retired in 2008, and then I had, it just took me a while to get my head focused around, I had taken a bunch of notes about my conversations with Albert. There were lots of material. It just took me a while to sort of get myself to sit down and put pen to paper and write the book. And initially I was a bit reluctant, Michael, because, for one thing, I'd never written a book before, and it never ever occurred to me during my life that I would or should write a book. So this is all sort of new to me. But Albert was very persistent, and even though I didn't sort of jump at the idea initially, he kept on sort of giving me gentle pushes and persuasions to get going and start writing my book. So it took me a couple of years to get at it. The other thing holding me back a bit, Michael, was the fact that what is in Dancing on a Stamp and what I've revealed to everyone about my conversations with Albert is really quite different from my persona before, when I was practicing corporate law, because I was very straight-laced and I never ever spoke about spirituality or anything even close to that. And so one of the things that concerned me was that if I wrote this book and published it, what would my former partners think, my former law partners? What would some of my friends, back in Calgary think? What would my family think? So there was a bit of a reluctance to sort of make the decision about whether or not I should come out of the spiritual closet and write and publish this book. So that sort of held me back a bit, but eventually Albert convinced me to get going, and it took me about a year to write the manuscript, and then I had to find a publisher. Now, the interesting thing was that I had asked Albert to tell me who I should send my manuscript to have it published. Obviously, from where he was on the spirit side, he knew what was going on and who would ultimately publish it. But he wouldn't tell me who it was. He made me go through the exercise of doing my research and researching publishers who published in the genre that my book was going to be in, and I had to send out query letters and book proposals to a bunch of publishers until I got a publishing offer from my publisher, Ozark Mountain Publishing. So Albert didn't make it easy for me. I guess he thought that was one of the life experiences I need to have. So I had to go through and do all the homework and slog it through to find my publisher, which I did. I got a publishing offer in December of 2011, and then my book was actually published and released about 9 months later. So that is sort of how I ended up with my book being published last October.
Yeah, I'm sure it, and that would take a lot for a person to move forward. So, and being the man that you were, a corporate lawyer and everything, and so I think that dispels anybody's, it had to be really apparent to you, is what I'm trying to say, that this was real, this was really happening, because you, by taking this step, you put yourself out there for people to ridicule you and say, oh, it's just voices in your head, and you wouldn't do that if this wasn't so, apparent, so true. And to me, that just shows how true this story is, that, you would do, step forward like this, because like you said, you're totally you moved out of your comfort zone. Because I'm sure a lot of people have told you, oh, that's just voices in your head.
Yeah, well, for sure, I had to step way out of my comfort zone, Michael. But the reason I did was that because my first encounters with Albert when he was disguised as the homeless person, they were so vivid and so real in my recollection that they were, without a question, it was something that actually did happen. And in fact, my memories of that encounter are still crystal clear, more clear than any other memories that I had of things that happened in my life. So that it just stands out and continues to stand out. And then when I started talking with Albert, it became quite apparent that this guy was really for real. His answers were felt really right and true in my heart, and they just sort of they rang like they were the truth. And I had, when I heard his answers and I heard him speak, I had no doubt whatsoever that this guy was a very special person, that he was who he said he was, a spirit guide from the spirit side who was here to answer my questions and coach me on my journey. So it was just too real and too vivid to be a dream or anything else. And that was one of the reasons that sort of pushed me out of my comfort zone, because I knew that this special spirit had made the special effort to contact me. He had asked me to write a book about our conversations, and I just knew that I couldn't refuse. And if I did, I would regret that decision for the rest of my life. So I knew I just had to jump in with both feet and get out of my comfort zone, and I'd have to just accept whatever ridicule may come my way. But that's just part of what may happen, and you can't not do what's right because you're afraid some people may snicker at you. And so that's why I went ahead and wrote the book.
Right. When you know your work, like you're doing, helping so many with this book, and like myself, I've gotten ridiculed too for some of my family members saying, what are you doing? This is crazy. But I know it's right. I know it's good intention. It's pure. It's real. But diving into the questions that about your encounter, and I have so many, like so many people. One question I have is, what did Albert say about, what is our true meaning for our life? Why are we here? So many people ask.
Well, yeah, that was one of my main questions too, Michael. And Albert actually gave me a good answer. He said, look, we're all eternal souls who live forever. And he said to me, before you were born, you were on the spirit side where I am right now. The spirit side's a lovely place, just full of peace and happiness, and there's no negative emotions or injury or disease or anything else. Just a wonderful place. A place some people refer to as the other side, or some religious people refer to it as heaven. Anyway, that's where I came from. That's where you came from, Michael. And the reason that I am here on Earth is that I chose to incarnate as a human so that I could experience things on Earth that I needed for my growth and evolution as a soul. I came here to experience things that just didn't exist on the spirit side, and I freely chose this. So I wasn't forced to come here by God or the source or by anyone over there. It was my decision, and it was my decision to choose the life that I now have. And so when you're on the spirit side, just to help you, or for what he said to me to help me understand why I would bother coming here and leaving such a wonderful place and coming to a difficult place like Earth is that he said on the spirit side you can learn about what happens on Earth, you can learn about what happens in the universe, but that's really like book learning. And to really complete your knowledge, you need to come to incarnate on one of the denser planes, like the planet Earth, incarnate into a physical body, and actually experience things so that will then complete your knowledge, your book knowledge that you have on the spirit side. So that's why we come here. And before we come, we each prepare a life plan in which we set out sort of like who we're going to be, like where we're going to be born, what our name will be, who our parents will be, and our siblings, and our aunts and uncles, and our spouse and our children. So we plan all these sort of major circumstances beforehand with a view to trying to experience the things that we think we need for our evolution. And so this is, in answer to the question, Why am I here? A very simple answer, because I chose to come here to learn and experience. And what is my purpose in life? My purpose in life is to try to experience the things that I had planned for myself in my life plan before I was born. Now, the tricky part about that is that once we are incarnated on Earth, Michael, we aren't allowed to remember what we put in our life plans. And that, coupled with the fact that we're given free will to act while we're here, means that we're not given the roadmap for where we're supposed to go. The roadmap was prepared, but we're not allowed to know that, and we have to sort of try to perceive as we make our way through life what it was that our soul had intended for us before we were born. So that's what makes the school of Earth so difficult, and one of the most difficult in the universe, is that these two factors. So it's not a simple game of somebody giving you a roadmap after you're born and say, here's what you're supposed to follow. That would be way too easy, and that's why we don't get to remember what's in our life plans, because it would just make our lives too easy. And so Earth's a difficult school. We knew that before we came here, we just have to go through it and try to discern what we put in our life plans based upon the messages that we get, the guidance we get from our spirit guides, who are always there on the spirit side, always sending us messages to try to steer us down the right path. And these messages are very subtle. They can be intuitive thoughts that pop into your head. They can be gut feelings. They can be coincidental events. They can be synchronicities. There's various ways that they try to send messages to us. And the trick for us is to be alert to recognize these messages, to hear them, and try to figure out what it is they're trying to tell us. And if we can become better at doing that, then we'll be better able to sort of stay on the path that we had chosen for ourselves before we were born. But it's not an easy thing, something that we have to work at. We knew all this before we got here, Michael. We knew it'd be a tough school. It would be no walk in the park, but we chose it anyway because we wanted to experience some of the things on Earth that you can't experience anywhere else in the universe.
Yeah, I understand. I see that. It's just at times when we all have very hard times to go through, or when you see people that are starving in Africa, it's hard to believe, though I believe it, it's still hard to believe that, they picked that life to live,
Yeah, it is. It's still hard for me to sort of quite fully comprehend that, but I do believe what Albert said is true. And he said, somebody's starving in Africa, you say to yourself, why would they want to have that life? Well, that because we're thinking about things from a human perspective, Michael, and we just don't recall life on the spirit side or the planning that we do before we got here. We're thinking in earthly terms, and for us, you say, who would want to be a starving child in Africa? Well, the answer is we wouldn't, but the soul of that person obviously did, because that's the life they chose, and we're not going to be able to fully understand the reasons for that, but that soul, before it was born on Earth, set out that life, chose that life voluntarily when they were doing their life plan, and they had good reasons for it, because you just don't come to a place like Earth on a lark without any plan. And so there was something they needed to experience as that child starving in Africa that made them choose that life. So difficult as it may be to believe, that's the way it is. And, you and I won't fully understand that until we both cross over to the spirit side, and then we'll totally understand what life on Earth is really all about. Right.
We got a caller here, so I do want to take a caller. I do want to remind everybody that's listening to this show live or archive, we also did a show, part 1. So if you didn't catch that, we went over a lot more information, too, there. So look for that show. It's listed. We did that show on November 7th, 2013. So look for that show also. It's labeled under Dancing on the stamp. Garnet, how can people get your book also?
Okay, well, my book, the easiest way, if they shop online, is to go to my website, which is dancingonastamp.com. And on the homepage, there's a bunch of buy links for my book, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Book Depository and several others. So if you click on any of those links, you immediately get to the place on that site where my book is sold, and then you just have to fill in the details and click, and you can get it. It's also carried in a lot of bricks and mortar bookstores, and it's not carried in all of them. But if somebody has a favorite bookstore that doesn't carry Dancing on a Stamp, they can certainly order it for you. So my book is available in paperback, and it's also available as an ebook. And all of those sites on my webpage, they all offer both the paperback and the ebook. And so if you have a Kindle or other ebook reader, you can easily download my book very quickly and have it available for reading immediately. And the Kindle price is actually cheaper than the paperback price. So that's the best way to get my book. If anyone finds a bookstore that doesn't have it and isn't willing to get it, I offer them to send me an email, which is contact@dancingonastamp.com, and I will talk to my publisher to make sure that we can get my book to the bookstore that you would like to deal with.
Okay, and I remember we talked about this before, and about giving away one free book for one lucky listener. So why don't we open that up to anybody who calls in with a question or want to share a story? We'll put you in the drawing, and then we'll give away one book. So call in with your question or story, and 347-884-8245. Let's take a caller we have on deck here. Let's bring in Kathleen to the show. Kathleen, welcome. You're calling from where again?
Massachusetts.
That's right, Massachusetts.
Hi, Garnet. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Kathleen. How are you?
Good. Well, first of all, I want to make a comment, and that was there must have been really slim pickings to choose from before we came to the earth plane, because I really don't think I would have picked this life. But, But I have a question. Why do you call your book Dancing on a Stamp, as in postage stamp?
It's a postage stamp, yeah. So it's meant to be dancing on a stamp, which is a postage stamp, Kathleen. Let me tell you the story behind that. The phrase dancing on stamp actually came from Albert, my spirit guide, but not initially in the context of a book title. And how it arose was that during the course of one of our conversations, Kathleen, I'd been complaining about something or other in my life, and Albert said to me, he said, the problem you've had is that you spent too much of your life dancing on a stamp. And I said to him, well, Albert, what do you mean by dancing on a stamp? And he said, well, imagine that you're in the middle of a big ballroom, and there's the band is playing great dance music, and everyone else around you is up and dancing and swirling around the whole floor and enjoying the music and the dance. Well, at the same time, you have been staying on one spot, like you have leg shackles on, like you're dancing on a stamp. And he said you need to quit dancing on a stamp and get out and explore that ballroom, which for him is the metaphor of this big, beautiful world we're living in. So that's what he meant by dancing on a stamp. It was something he told me that I should stop doing so that I could get on, with my life and be more fulfilled.
Right.
So that phrase stuck in my mind as I was writing my manuscript, and when the time came for me to pick a title for my book, that phrase kept on popping in my head. And so finally I said to Albert, I'm thinking that maybe Dancing on a Stamp would be a good title for my book. What do you think? And he said, yes, go for it. That's a good title. So that's where that came from. And it's such a unique phrase. I thought, it's catchy and maybe it'd be a good title. So.
I have another question, if I may ask one. I listened
Sure.
last week, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think I understood you to say that when we cross over, we want for nothing, food, drink, whatever. Am I right in saying that? Or
Yes, because
okay.
no,
Well,
you're,
all right.
you're absolutely right. Because when we cross over, we go to the spirit side, and on the spirit side, we're really like beings of energy. So we don't have a physical form in the sense that we do on the earth plane. Okay, so we have the spirit side is a really high vibration, and we will be vibrating at the same rate. So we're like beings of energy. So we don't need to eat or drink or breathe. There's no disease.
So would it also? Would you also say there's no worry? We no longer worry when we're over. Because I have a question I'm leading up to. Would you say we don't worry when we get over there?
There is no worry because all of your needs on the spirit side are absolutely instantly taken care of. You have no need for anything. There's no money. There's no jobs. There's no disease. There's no death. So basically, there's nothing to worry about. So there is no worry. You're in a state of bliss and happiness the whole time.
Okay. Well then, how come it is? Let's say I asked a medium for a reading, and they would say to me, "Your mother's worried about you getting in the car. There might be an accident, or she's worried about your hip, or blah blah blah." Isn't that like they can still see what's going on here, and they still worry about us in some fashion?
Yeah, that's the use of the term worry is a bit different on the spirit side than it is here. It's not the same kind of worry. I mean, your loved ones are watching over what you're doing, and they do have a concern about what can happen to you, but it's not like a worry on earth. It's really more of a concern to try that they would like to help, an imperative, a need for them to try to help you on your journey by sending messages through this medium. And so when the medium expresses the statement that they are worrying about you, it's really that they're concerned and they love you very much, and they want you to have the best journey possible that you can on earth. And if they can impart some messages to you through the medium to sort of help you on your journey, then they're happy to do so. But they're not worried in the sense that, if you don't do what's right, something bad is going to happen to you, because it doesn't matter what happens on earth, because you're going to end up back in the spirit side anyway, no matter what you do. And they know that. So the worry in that sense is not, in that context, is not the same kind of worrying that we do, where for us there's real sort of material consequences to the things we worry about. Like, I worry about if I'm going to get a promotion at work, and if I don't, then I won't have as much money. Or I worry about whether or not my child who is ill will get better, because if they don't, then I may lose my child. So that's the kind of worries we have here on earth. It's not the same thing. It's sort of more of a loving concern that the spirits have about the people they left behind on earth. Does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, and do we really meet up with our loved ones? Are they waiting for us when we cross over?
Absolutely, they are.
We see them
met by a welcoming party, which will be, the loved ones that have passed on before. I don't know who in your life has, but your grandparents or your parents, whoever's gone. Mm-hmm. All those people will be waiting there and giving you a big, loving hug. And welcome you to the spirit side and help you make the transition from your life on earth to the spirit side. And so yes, they absolutely will be there. Not only will your loved ones be there, but your pets will be there as well, if you have any pets. And if they pass on. So it's really quite an amazing welcoming party, according to Albert. It's very exhilarating, and it's just like one of the best things that you could ever experience is to meet all these people that may have passed on for many years, and they'll all be there and with big smiles on their face and happy to see you again.
Oh, wow. Well, that's really cool. That's something to look forward to. I was always afraid of
It
dying.
certainly is,
Now I'm not.
Yes.
Okay, I
Yeah,
did have. I could go on and on and on, but I know there's other callers that have questions.
There's well, Kathleen, what you were saying. I have a question off of that to Garnet. Garnet, she was saying, now I have nothing, to be afraid for dying. There really is nothing to be afraid of dying, is there?
No, there's not. Just because it's just a transition. It's just you're moving through a doorway from this planet to the spirit side, which is, I mean, a way better place to be than this planet is, because this is a difficult planet to incarnate on. So it is wonderful. And in fact, Albert said that there's no sort of a pain or distress or anxiety when you're doing the crossing over, which is one of my concerns. And I'd asked him about that. And he said no. He said when your soul is ready to leave the incarnation, your incarnation, it will actually leave your body prior to your actual physical death on Earth. So, for example, if I were to die in a car accident, my soul would actually leave my body, just moments before the impact. So I wouldn't feel the impact. I wouldn't feel any pain. I wouldn't feel any distress. I would be basically outside my body watching the final moments like I was watching a movie. And it wouldn't be distressful because I would know that my body that has just perished was just my shell for my journey on Earth, and that I'm moving on to the spirit side. And with me will be my spirit guides who are basically taking me by the hand and lead me on to the wonderful world that we call the spirit side. So there's nothing to be concerned about death, and there's not even any concern about the actual physical death process, because it's all, according to Albert, all very wonderful. And so the short answer is no, we shouldn't have any concern about our deaths at all.
Wow. Can I mention one more thing, Michael?
Sure.
Or is it okay?
No, go ahead.
I was talking to someone on Blog Talk Radio, and I said to them, I was born in 1957, but I have such a strong connection to the 1940s. I said, as far as the music goes, I absolutely love it. I love the old movies. I love the way the women dressed, the men dressed. And I said, and I feel like I dated a lot back then. And I said, how could that be, though, that I would have such a strong connection to the 40s when I was born in 57? And he said, you were in the past life in the 40s. And the reason why, you liked the music, this and that, he goes, it really was, even though there was a war going on, it was fun times. And I just can't believe that soon after I could be reincarnated to come into this life. And the funny thing is, he said to me, you were a nurse in your past life, and however I died, I don't know, it was during the war. But isn't it true that you come back into your next life to finish what you didn't in your last? Because in this lifetime, I've had to deal with 2 sick children, a mother with brain cancer, a brother with brain cancer. I mean, I feel like I've been a nurse all over again in this lifetime. Do you feel that I could have been reincarnated such a short time after the 40s and be reincarnated in 1957, and that we do come back to finish off what we started?
Yes, in both counts, Kathleen. Yes, it certainly is possible for you to come back into a physical body so quickly after your last incarnation. It's really up to each soul as to how long you want to linger on the spirit side, if I can put it that way, and how quickly you want to get back into a body on Earth. And it just varies. And obviously, in your case, you probably felt that you did have some unfinished business from your life in the 40s, and that you were eager to get back and to give it another go. And so that's why you came back with me. And so, yeah, unfinished business. Well, we all have some unfinished business after each life, but it's just a matter of how quickly you want to get back into it. In some cases, we linger on the spirit side because we we want to do some studying in the libraries and consulting with our guides and the wise ones before we get back. But in other cases, we just say to heck with it. I'm going right back in, and I'm going to continue on and finish what I felt I hadn't finished in my previous life. So absolutely, it sounds like you are doing just that, Kathleen.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much. I know I'm hogging the whole show. I know there's other callers, but thank you so much for answering my questions, Garnet. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Kathleen, and thanks for calling in.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions,
Michael.
Kathleen. Oh, you're very welcome. Okay, my guest here, Garnet, the author of Amazing. That was my headline. Dancing on a Stamp. If you have a question for my guest, call in. This is the show for tonight. I will say Greg Keene's show is rescheduled for next Thursday. So we, Garnet, if needed, can you stay over a little bit, or are you pressed for time? Do you need to go at the top of the hour, or?
I can stay for another 15 minutes or so, Michael.
Okay, I don't know if it'll be that. I'll just see how things are. But just seeing if we have callers, we'll stay a little bit extra for the callers here. So call in if you have a question, or maybe you want to share a spiritual story. Let's go next to 615. I believe this is Brenda. Is this Brenda?
Yes, it is, Michael. How are you?
Hey, Brenda, doing good. Thanks for calling in.
You're welcome. Hi, Garnet. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Brenda. How are you?
I'm fine. My question is, it's kind of an observation, too, but for quite a while now, I've had angels and guides, and I'm always hearing them call my name. A lot of times it's when I'm at work, and I just have to kind of, in my mind, say, please leave me alone. I'm trying to work. And I kind of really push them off some, but at the same time, I talk to them when I'm not at work so that people don't think I've gone off my rocker. But because you have these encounters with guides and your angels and all that, does not necessarily make a difference as to where you could become psychic or a medium or any of that. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people who can receive messages from their guides and their angels without necessarily being psychic. In a sense of when I think of a psychic, I think of somebody who can regularly tap into spirits on the spirit side to get messages for people who they're getting readings for. So they sort of do this on a regular basis for other people, and mediums can access loved ones for the people they're getting readings for, and they seem to be able to do this sort of at will on a regular basis. But there's a lot of people who do have messages from their guides or from their angels who get them in a personal sense. It's a matter of sort of like a personal guidance for them, but that they wouldn't necessarily get messages for other people. So I think, we're all psychic to a certain degree. Some of us have developed the ability to such an extent that they can actually give readings for other people, and for others, it's just a matter of being able to listen to what our guides are saying without sort of tapping into other people's guides or other people's spirits. So in your sense, if you're hearing from your guides or your angels, that's certainly coming from your psychic abilities, and you're very fortunate to be able to hear them that clearly, because a lot of people just don't hear the messages that clearly. They have to sort of spend a lot of time trying to decipher intuitive messages and other more subtle communications that are coming from their guides.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Brenda?
It did, and I do know when I meditate, a lot of times Mother Mary will come to me in my meditations. And she doesn't speak to me in my meditations, but she shows me things. She'll show me like different scenes and things like that. And sometimes they relate, I can figure them out, and other times it's just kind of like, I don't know where that came from. So it's kind of...
Yeah, that's certainly, that's certainly a form of message that you're getting, and whether it's Mother Mary herself or whether your guides are giving you that vision for a special purpose, but by all means, you really should try to pay attention to what they're giving you, even if it's symbols. And sometimes they deliberately give you something that's not entirely clear, that's a bit ambiguous, because they want you to try to figure it out on your own. And often it's the case of trying not to make it too easy for you, because if they give you sort of the as I mentioned, the roadmap about what you should be doing, maybe that's too easy, so they're trying to sort of be a little bit more subtle. But by all means, pay attention to those symbols. Write them down when you get them. If it's not apparent to you right away when you get them what the message is, just leave it. Go back to it later. Eventually, the true meaning for those symbols will come to you, even if it's only days or weeks later. So I think by all means keep up the flow of messages, Brenda, because I think you've got a good source for your messages from your guides.
Okay, yeah, I'm really kind of sure that my angels or my guides were really kind of showing me the image of Mother Mary, because I really feel like that's not who my guide is. It's not. I'm quite sure it's not Mother Mary. I don't know how I know that. I'm pretty sure that it's not. Who they are at the moment. I really, because I've been through a lot lately, I haven't really been able to quiet myself enough to really get in tune with them, so to speak. And so I just kind of, I guess maybe I've kind of pushed them off to the side a little bit. Maybe that's not a good thing.
That's not a good thing, Brenda, because if you're going through a period of distress, as it sounds you may be, that's exactly the time when you need to get all the guidance that you can get. And so that's what during those times you really have to focus on listening to the messages, not pushing them off, but taking them in, writing them down, even if you don't understand what they mean right now. As I said, it'll come to you later as to what they were trying to tell you. So you really have to focus on getting as many of these messages as you can, because what they're really trying to do is help you find your way clear out of your period of distress. So you really have to try to listen carefully, and they're there to try to help you, Brenda.
Okay. Well, then I guess I'll just have to try and really make some time and listen. And my biggest thing was with that, and the reason I sort of kind of pushed them to the side is because I lost my son 3 years ago, but 6 months before that, I had a vision of my son, of losing my son. I actually saw him laying in the emergency room, and he had already passed. And I pushed that off, totally off, because I did not want to face that. And I just thought, okay, you're just being crazy. But, it was just a matter of months later, and it happened. And so I don't know if I'm more afraid of trying to confront them or what it is. I'm kind of blocking it. I don't really know.
You shouldn't be afraid of the messages because, as I said, they're trying to help you. And I think when you mentioned about your vision of your son dying 6 months before he did, they were trying to gently ease you into what was going to happen, I think. And so, and I don't know if it helped you or not, but I think that's what they were trying to do. So you shouldn't be afraid of what's coming, because it's going to come whether or not you get an advance notice or not. But if you have some preparation for what may happen down the road, maybe you can avoid what's going to happen, or maybe you'll be in a better position to deal with it when it does. So they're not trying to make your life difficult or scary or anything. They have a good reason for getting you these messages, and you really, as I said before, you really have to try to listen to them, Brenda, and not push them away.
Okay. All right. Well, then thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in, Brenda.
Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate your call, Brenda. Thanks for calling in. Always good to hear from you and to be here on the show. Let's see. I have another caller here. I'm not sure if they have a question or not. Let's just check before we wrap up. 229, did you have a question for my author, Dancing on the Stamp?
Hey, Michael, this is Melvin.
Hey, Melvin, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, always.
Yes, sir. I was just calling to see any messages for me coming up.
Okay. Well, we're not doing readings right now. My guest is an author of a book, Dancing on a Stamp. So, okay. So, yes. Okay, I'll put you back on hold here, Melvin. Hold on, and I'll give you an announcement with everybody else after we wrap up. Garnet, please let everybody know once again how people can get your book.
Okay, well, the easiest way is to buy it online, and if you go to my website, which is dancingonastamp.com, on the homepage there's a number of buy links where you can buy the book, and you can just click on various Amazon sites and Barnes & Noble and Book Depository and my publisher, Ozark Mountain. You click on any of these sites, you go immediately to the page where my book is offered for sale, and you can just go ahead and complete the purchase. And it is available in some bricks and mortar stores if you prefer to deal with a real store. Not all of them carry it, but a lot of them do. And if your bookstore doesn't have to carry it, you can always get them to order it because it's easily available from my distributor. So that's the easiest way to get my book. And if none of those things work, I invite you to send me an email at contact@dancingonastamp and tell me your predicament, and I will arrange with my publisher to make sure that you can buy one.
Well, that's really nice. That's great. Very great of you. Garnet, that's going to wrap up our show. I've really enjoyed meeting you, and it's been a total pleasure in getting to know you and the book, and you're doing a great service out there. So I wish you well with your book and your mission. Do you have any plans of writing any other books?
Yes, I'm in the process of writing my second book now, Michael. I'm not sure. My target is to be finished in the next couple of months. I'm not sure when it will be out, but I'll keep people posted on my website and on my Facebook page about when to expect it. Hopefully it'll be sometime in the first half of next year. I hope all things go well. And my second book will be more adventures with my spirit guide Albert. I don't want to disclose right now exactly what's going to be in it, but
sure.
It'll be more wisdom, more revelations, more interesting insights from my spirit guide Albert. It'll be, in some ways a continuation on different areas of what we explored in Dancing on a Stamp. So I'm looking forward to finishing it, and hopefully your viewers would be happy to buy it when it's out.
I'm sure they will. It's right up their alley, and get a hold of me if you would, and we'll get you back on the show. Be great to have you back and exploring that book as well. So, Garnet, you have a great holidays coming up, and again, it's been a pleasure meeting you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Michael, and thank you for inviting me on your shows. And I do look forward to being back on your show when my second book is out.
Yeah, look forward to it. All right. Have a good night. Thanks, Garnet.
Good night, Michael.
All righty. Really enjoyed that very much. And remember, if you're listening live or archive, we did part 1 with Garnet, another hour interview that you can listen to. That date of that show is November the 7th, 2013. In case you're in another year. I mean, I got shows going back to 2009, so, and I never thought I would have that